Everybody, and welcome to today's episode. I'm actually really excited to talk about what we're going to talk about because it's very intriguing and interesting. And because it's more fun with a friend and it's more fun to discuss, I brought my friend Cheyanne on. Cheyanne, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Yes, I am a student. I'm going to university right now, and Kyra and I are actually in the same positive psychology class. I was born and raised here in this small town that we're going to school to, and I like music a lot. Love to play the piano. Played for about 7 years. I'm not good. Don't misconstrue that, but okay. I like it.
I feel like you could play it if you like it.
Yeah.
You can play it somewhat.
Yeah. I try to humble myself, but
she's like, I'm not good, and then all of a sudden you're in this concert or something. I don't know.
I hope so.
I feel like that would be you.
Yeah.
I feel like you'd be like, yeah, not a big deal, and then you play in Carnegie Hall or something.
I'm doing classes for a music minor right now, so I'm just surrounded by people who are so fantastic at music, and it's totally awesome, but I'm wow, I need to practice so much more.
I see. It's very humbling, I bet.
It is.
You're like,
I'm like, you guys are so smart.
Yeah, what's the difference between humbling and self-deprecating? Because I feel like it's a fine line.
Yeah, that's a very, very thin line to walk. Very gray area.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, so you were built. So you were born in Cedar City?
Yeah.
Did you know I was too?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was born here in Cedar. I didn't grow up here. I mean, my grandparents live here though, so I visited all the time.
Okay.
So it's like home, for sure.
Where'd you grow up?
I lived 9 years of my life in Spanish Fork, Utah. And then when I was 13, we moved down to Gilbert, Arizona.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that hot Arizona or pretty foresty Arizona?
Hot Arizona, yeah. Did you go to Cedar City or Canyon View?
I went to Canyon View.
Okay. I feel like I don't know very many people that went to Cedar City.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome. I love that. I love finding out that we have things in common without even realizing it.
Yeah.
You know
it's crazy.
I mean?
It's such a small world.
It is. It is. And the funny thing is it's kind of not, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, I'm in this class and it's called Emotional and Relational Development Over the Lifespan, or Through the Lifespan. I don't know which one it is. And basically, oh great, here we go.
Bless you.
Basically, this professor's pretty lazy, I'm not going to lie.
Uh-oh.
Because
What is it?
I'll tell you after.
Okay.
It's completely online. There's no lectures or anything. We just read. That's all we do.
Alrighty.
So we read, we write a paper, single space, 2 pages every week, and a discussion board every single week, but we're just reading different books. Huh. And the professor doesn't do anything. But I don't want to complain too much, because although he doesn't really do anything, I have learned a lot from the books. So I don't know really what I would do differently, because I really do feel like I learned a lot from the books.
Yeah.
But it is interesting because I'm like, okay, well, you've done literally nothing.
Yeah. Did he write the book?
No.
Doesn't count then.
Yeah, seriously. But we were told to buy, I think there's 5 books at the very beginning of the semester.
Wow.
It ended up being $90 total for all of them.
That's sick.
So there are books out there that you only buy one book and it's $120 or whatever. So I do appreciate that. It was only $80 or whatever, but I do feel kind of gypped a little bit because it's I could read these books on my own.
Yeah.
That being said, would I read them as fast and as in-depth as I have been without having a class? Probably not.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the point of saying all of that is, in this class, we are reading this one book, and we, fly through these books, by the way. We're reading this 350-page book in 2 weeks.
Wow.
He assigns us 150 pages per week. It might be 300 pages.
Is this a 4,000 level class, or?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, but we are given so many pages. He assigns us like 140 to 150 pages per week to read.
Wow.
And then that paper and then the discussion board. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah, that's a lot, I'll be honest.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
I
But
have a hard time reading the, 9-page studies
seriously.
that Dr. Hatch assigns
No,
us.
100%. 100%. Luckily, most of these books are interesting. But sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh. So,
Yeah.
yes, some of them are pretty rough. But this one has been extremely interesting. And her writing style is also really good.
Yeah.
And it is called Love Sense, The Revolutionary New Science of Romantic Relationships by Dr. Sue Johnson. And she actually came up with EFT, which is emotion focused therapy. Have you ever heard of it?
No, that sounds, familiar.
So in class, we literally just talked about emotion focused coping, but we didn't actually go into anything.
That's why.
But she came up with emotion focused therapy, and it has been shown through research to be super helpful and super, I don't know what's the word, effective? There we go.
Yeah.
Super effective.
What does it, contain?
To be honest with you, she hasn't gotten to that point yet. She just mentions emotion-focused therapy and how it makes couples more secure in their relationship and all these things. And I'm like, sweet, now I want to know what this is,
This next chapter.
Probably, yeah. We're finishing the book next week, so there you go.
Yeah.
So anyway, I wanted to give you that... Oh my gosh, I hate yawning.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You have nothing to do with it. I wanted to give you that background because this whole podcast episode is just going to be reading some of these studies from this book. And I would like to say that it's not going to be word for word, but it probably is because we were trying to go through and summarize it, but she just says it so good that I feel like I'm going to miss important things if we do that. So we're just going to try to read them to you, and we're going to take turns, and then we're going to discuss after. And Cheyanne was so kind and so nice that even though she's not in this class, I sent her the studies, and she was down to talk about them. So, yeah. I have this quote that I sent to a friend that I don't remember where it came from, but I'm just going to start with it so that I don't miss it.
Yeah.
And it's talking about naming emotions. What we name, we can tame. When we give meaning to something, we can tolerate it and even change its impact. And then there's a study that goes along with that, which is just kind of bonkers. So, are you ready to get into it? Do you have any questions before we start?
I don't. Let's get into it.
Okay, sweet. So, I want to start with page 70. And I'm just going to tell you what pages these are on because citation. And then we'll kind of talk about them. So, I am going to start. Just knowing that there are basic emotions we all feel and recognize can make a huge difference in our everyday lives. Psychologist Matthew Lieberman of the University of California, Los Angeles, has demonstrated that the simple act of naming an emotion calms the emotional center of the brain. In an fMRI study, Lieberman showed people images of faces with negative expressions, for example, grimacing in anger. When subjects were asked to identify the sex of the person in the image, the emotional area remained highly activated. But when they were asked to label the feeling they saw by choosing between two words written under the image, their brains calmed down. Naming an emotion begins the process of regulating it and reflecting on it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of fire.
Yeah, that's insane.
I am funny when I take notes when I'm reading a book because I don't write really deep things, but I'll put whoa and then I'll put clappy emojis, or I'll put this is fire or dang. Anyway, that's how I respond. And I probably put this is fire to this one.
It's the best thing to write in your margins, though. It's
Absolutely.
when you get a book from an old person and it has cute little notes or whatever in the margins.
Yeah.
And think 100 years from now, you're going to be looking through old books at the DI that came out right now, and the quote's just going to be this is fire. And that'll be
what does
an
that even
outdated
mean?
term.
Yeah, they're going to be what does this mean? Where's the fire? That's freaking awesome. They're going to have to look it up on... They're going to have to ask AI at the time, which is probably going to be a robot that will talk to them. And
they won't even look it up. They'll just think about it in their brain, and they'll get the little answer in their brain microchip.
You're right. That sounds creepy, actually. I don't want that in my future.
A little bit. They're working on it, though, so
oh my
we'll
gosh,
see.
That's nuts.
I think it's an Elon Musk thing right now. He's working on an implantable chip.
That's like Google?
What?
That's like Google?
And it's like, it's weird. It's like the startings of like a communication thing. So it's very much like in its like beginning testing phases. It's not out or anything.
But you can talk to people through this chip. Is that what it is?
Perhaps. Like, that's where it would be moving, yes.
Whoa. Technology is nuts, man.
Yeah.
Wow. So, wow. Okay. Sorry.
Anyway, big derail. Sorry, that's my bad.
That's okay. I love tangents. I love them. This podcast would not be what it was without tangents, so you're good.
You're the best.
But basically, this study is talking about naming emotions and how powerful that is. And I guess it goes along perfect with the quote. When what we name, we can tame. Right? So when we can name those emotions, we can start to regulate and tolerate it. And I think that's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And super important, honestly, because I feel like a lot of the times we have emotions and we feel overwhelmed, and then there's like nothing we can do.
Yeah.
And it feels like I'm just stuck here. I'm just lost.
Yeah.
And this doctor, Matthew Lieberman of the University of California, did this study that found that when we name these emotions, our brain is calmed down, which is just crazy to me.
It makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, if you think humans have always been scared of the unknown, right? Like, I don't know, you just think about people absolutely losing it when they don't know what's going on. And it would be the same thing with your brain, I would assume. If you're like, why am I feeling this way? I have no idea what's going on. And then maybe you go and get a diagnosis and it's like, oh, I haven't been able to focus for 20 years because I have ADHD that was never dealt with or diagnosed. But once you know, you can look up, treatment methods or medication if you're into doing something like that. But,
or even give yourself some grace if you aren't able to focus. Yeah, I love that. I was also thinking about emotion coping. Emotion coaching. Have you ever heard of emotion coaching?
I haven't.
So emotion coaching is something that John Gottman came up with. And I'm sure you've heard of him because we did an article on John Gottman.
Gottman is like my hero.
Oh, yeah. John Gottman is literally in every single one of my classes, I swear, which is awesome because they like all overlap and anyway, one of the books we read for this class was one written by him.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Science of Trust is what it's called.
Huh.
We read that one. Or we read chapters 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was all we read out of that book, but that was...
Out of the 5?
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of the 5 books, we read all... Yeah, exactly. And he has this idea of parents coaching their kids through emotions. So there's different types of parenting in lots of different ways, but in one of the ways of how they deal with emotions. So one of the things they can do is dismiss. So they'll like dismiss your feelings, and often they distract. So they're like, oh, let's go make cookies, or let's go make cookies. Or they just kind of like, you're sad, and they won't address that you're sad. They just want to cheer you up or something.
Yeah.
So that's dismissing or distracting. And then there's disapproving. Someone will be crying and they'll be like, stop crying. Or, they
grow up.
Yeah, exactly. They don't approve of the emotion. And then there's laissez-faire parents, and they address the emotion. They're like, oh, I can see that you're sad. But then they don't coach you through it. So then he said that emotion coaching is the best thing that parents can do. And maybe this will deserve its own episode because it's pretty fire. It's pretty good stuff.
Well, it's so important.
It is. But anyway, in this study that I'm thinking of from this class, actually, they talked about how if you emotion coach your kids even 30% of the time, it will make an impact and it will be good.
Yeah.
Which 30% of the time is not as often as you would think you need to do it. You know? But anyway, emotion coaching takes time and patience, and sometimes you're running late, and sometimes they're freaking out in the grocery store, and you're like, now is not the time. But rarely do kids have super crazy emotions on a lazy Saturday where you can, have the time to walk them through and emotion coach them. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of things. I'll probably do an episode now on it, but
you should.
You name the emotion, and you kind of go from there. But that's the first one, is you name the emotion. So laissez-faire parents will name the emotion, but then they won't continue on with the rest of the steps. So that was a huge tangent, but an important one. I should probably do an episode on it because it's really cool.
Yeah.
And emotion coaching is basically naming emotions is step number one. And that is powerful. And so, I mean, it's just cool that we were talking about this, and then suddenly that came to mind.
You're like, wait.
Yeah, seriously.
Wait, I remember.
Seriously, I don't even know how I was going to connect that. I mean, it did connect, but, like, more than how it's connecting.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. I just was going to, so there you go.
It does. No, it makes a lot of sense, though. It's directly, applicable, you know? And you grow, 30% of the time, right? Like, that's not most of the time, but even if your parents are showing you how to properly deal with and address your emotions 30% of the time, like, that's got to carry into adulthood.
It does, and that's the thing, is studies have shown again and again and again that it does. That when you emotion coach your kids, or kids who are emotion coached, adults who are emotion coached as kids there was just, like, benefits from it. I don't want to make up benefits that I've seen from a whole bunch of different places, but there's benefits. Like, they were more secure in their relationships, and they were able to more regulate their they were able to self-soothe by themselves a lot easier.
Yeah.
That was totally a double thing. They were able to self-soothe
Easier.
easier. They were able to self-soothe easier.
So much easier. Oh, man.
That's fantastic. Self-soothe easier. There we go. Okay, got it. So,
you got
there's the first one. Are you down to read the second one?
Yeah.
Okay, if it's long, it's okay. Just, vibe.
Just power through.
Yeah, just vibe.
I'm in college. I hope I can read.
You got this.
Do you think it's Cone?
Cone?
Cohen? Yeah.
However you say it, I think's fine, probably.
Jim Cohen at the University of Virginia, one of the most creative scholars in the new field of social neuroscience, put women, all happily married, into an fMRI machine and took pictures of their brains as they saw small circles and X's flash in front of their eyes. They were told that when they saw the X's, that there was a 20% chance that they would receive an electric shock on their ankles. After each shock, they rated, on a simple scale, how much it hurt. The twist in the experiment was that sometimes the women faced the shock threat alone. Other times they were with a stranger who came into the room and held their hand. And other times they would face the shock threat with their husband clasping their hand. The results were fascinating. When the X's popped up in front of their eyes and they were all alone, their brains lit up with activity like a Christmas tree. Alarm was everywhere, and they rated the shock when it came as very painful. When the stranger grasped their hand, their brain reacted with less alarm to the X's, and they found the shock less painful. Isolation is traumatizing and exacerbates our perception of threat. But what was really interesting was that when their husband gripped their hand, their brain barely responded to the X's, just as if someone had told them that it was raining outside. And they said the shock was simply uncomfortable. This is love in action, offering us safe harbor, a place to calm our terrors and find equilibrium. Page 63.
Boom, you did freaking awesome reading that. That was impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that was impressive.
Should do Audible or something.
Yeah, you should, 100%. But let's talk about that study. Holy cow.
Yeah. What? A lot of unload there.
like what? What you're telling me is that if someone holds my hand and I trust them and I love them, then things that are potentially painful won't be as painful.
Yeah.
And they won't be as stressful.
Yeah.
Like, physically, my brain will not light up with alarm if I'm holding someone's hand that I love and trust.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And something that I absolutely love about that is I kind of connected this to labor. Like childbirth.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because they can't do a study on childbirth, I bet. They can't be like, okay, you're in the control group where you hold your husband's hand, and that just
You're in the group
work.
where you don't hold anyone's hand, and I'm going to make you hold a stranger's hand while you're going through one of the hardest experiences you'll probably ever go through.
Right, so that's just not ethical, but it did make me think of going into labor or being in labor and holding your husband's hand.
Yeah.
And how it probably makes it less painful.
Well, just the thought, and just knowing that you're not going through something alone.
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, that's insane. Or you think about, I feel like that's a big issue with people going through, I don't want to say depression, but, like depression, or when people are really, really down, it's like, oh, no one else is feeling the way that I do. I'm so alone. No one's no one understands.
Right.
It's
no one
just
understands me.
Exactly. That's like my middle school emo phase at heart. But when you like connect with someone who maybe has gone through something and they're sharing their experience and how they got through it, or you're talking with a friend who's maybe going through the same thing, like you feel less alone. You feel better.
Yeah, you're right.
You get a bad score on a test and your friend tells you that they bombed it too and you're like, yes, yeah. I'm okay. It's not as bad.
No, you're 100% right. Another thing that I think is interesting about that study is even holding a complete stranger's hand helped them.
Yeah.
Not as much, but it helped them.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? I mean, it makes sense. Being alone is hard.
Yeah.
And if you have someone's hand to hold, I bet for some of them it was awkward, and I bet for some of them it was awkward until they got that shock, and then they were like, oh, someone's holding my hand. Everything's going to be okay.
Like, I'm happy.
Yeah. So, just so you know, these are all on different pages, as previously stated. So, what she just read was from page 63, and this next one is from page 72 to 73. So, 10 pages different. And it's talking about repression and suppression. So, I'll probably just read it, then we can talk about what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. It says, moreover, repression takes a huge physiological toll. Psychologist James Gross of Stanford University has directed a series of fMRI experiments assessing the effect of suppressing emotions compared with another strategy, reappraisal. That is, changing the way we evaluate an emotional situation. One of the most interesting studies asked 17 women are considered more emotionally expressive than men, to watch 15-second film clips of either emotionally neutral nature scenes of disgusting events, including vomiting, surgical procedures, and animal slaughter. The women were instructed either to try to hold back their reactions to the repulsive clips, which is keep your face still, or to try to reappraise the events by adopting a more general perspective, like that of a medical professional watching the film. Scans showed that suppression actually heightened activity in the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain. Stifling emotional reaction had a rebound effect. The women became so stressed and tense from holding back that the negative emotional effect of the disgusting clips was exasperated. By contrast, the more distancing reappraisal strategy reduced the women's negative emotional experience of the disgusting films. Scans showed activation of the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain that regulates emotion and turns down activity in the amygdala. And just remember, the amygdala is the fear response. And then a little bit later, this is not directly on that page, it's probably like on page 73, it says, think of capping a ready-to-erupt volcano. The bottled up force makes the eventual explosion stronger. That's why we see people suppress, then blow. And then another thing it says is the most functional way to regulate difficult emotions in love relationships is to share them. We know that confiding helps us reorganize our thoughts and responses, get clear about our priorities, receive new information and feedback, and feel comforted and calmed. That was a lot, but there's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
So, do you want to start off?
Yeah, kind of a joke, but with that second bit when she's talking about, like, suppress, and then blow, like, and see, maybe this is, like, too niche, but there was a meme, and there was, like, a Darth Vader, like, shower head, and the water came out of its eyes. So it looked like it was, like, crying, 100%. And the meme had said, like, me when someone asks me if I'm okay, and then the tears come flooding. And that's how I feel every time. I'm just, like, trying to hold it in, and I'm like, I can get through the workday, I'll be fine. And then, like, someone's like, hey, are you doing okay? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And then I just fall apart.
Yeah, 100%.
But it makes so much sense. I don't know.
It's interesting. And then for the discussion post, one of the questions is, what it would be an interesting discussion question to talk about. And so I talked about this study and said, if you could send this study to someone and tell them, listen, suppress, and blow, not a good idea. If you name your emotions, actually talk about them, that's not going to happen. Or it's less likely to happen. Who would you send it to? And that was kind of an interesting question. So without saying anything, would you say there's someone that you would send this to?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So I hope that you're listening, whoever needs to hear this, stop suppressing your emotions and feel them. Name them. Then you can tame them.
Yeah.
And then you can regulate and tolerate them. Boom.
Yeah. It just feels so much better, too.
Absolutely.
I think in general, like, that's even the suppressing stage, you know? Maybe it's not at the forefront of your brain, but your subconscious definitely knows that something's going on.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Like, that's exhausting.
You can't hide from yourself.
Yeah.
Who do you think you are?
It's true. Who do you, it's like the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah.
Both pointing at each other.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Why did I want to go, who do you think you are? Go. Anyway, that's freaking awesome.
Pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy. So I just realized, because we're having so much fun, that we're running out of time. So we're going to do the word of the day and the quote of the day, and we'll see you next week, because there are more studies to talk about. Bum, bum, bum. So, do you want to do the quote of the day?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, quote of the day, and this actually came from my, what is it called? When
Quote board? Quote board?
Who's the person, like, is it your counselor when you're talking about, like, who you're setting up your classes with next semester?
Yeah, your academic advisor?
Yes! So this came from my advisor, and I had not bombed, but kind of bombed 2 semesters in a row. And I was like, I'm going to take another semester and retake some classes. And so he told me this. He said, make it your first priority or don't. And I don't know. I do. I have a little, like, quote board that I keep, and that just, like, rung true with me, you know? I mean, you commit to it or don't, right?
Or don't. Yeah, you get to decide. And so I love that. And one of the reasons I picked that quote, because she gave me the list, and I was like, ooh, I like that, was because it's just true. Apply this knowledge, apply it into your life, or don't.
Yeah.
I recommend you do. I recommend you say, wow, they found that suppressing your emotions makes it worse. Maybe I should talk about my emotions more.
Yeah.
Men especially need to hear that. I'm sorry, but it's true.
It is true. And you can take that differently too, you know, make it your first priority or don't, right? I mean, take the stuff that really works and ditch the stuff that doesn't, because
like
it's not going to work. Everything's not going to work good for you. Personalize it.
You're right. 100%. What works for you? Perfect. Yeah. And then this is the word of the day, and I'm going to have it say it, and then I'll say it because I don't want to biff it.
Erudite.
Erudite. I knew I was going to mess it up if I just tried to read it. Because it's spelled E-R-U-D-I-T-E. And area, like, where does, you know, that doesn't, anyway. There's no area in there.
Erudite
yeah.
At first.
Erudite, but it's erudite. So erudite is an adjective, and it is having or showing great knowledge or learning. So the example is, Ken could turn any conversation into an erudite discussion. So like a scholarly or well-educated or learned, well-informed, cultivated, cultured, intellectual. I mean, it's pretty cool. So I was just saying, make your life, I don't know how to use an adjective all of a sudden. Have an erudite life, a well-versed, scholarly, learned life. Why not apply the knowledge that you know to your life and to your day?
That's beautifully said.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for being on today. Do you have any last words before we start number 2?
I don't believe so. Kind of just same thing what you reiterated.
Perfect.
Take this.
Perfect. Make it a priority or don't.
Yeah.
Boom. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to embrace imperfection, find meaning, satisfaction, and joy from the journey. I'm Kyra.
And I'm Cheyanne.
And this is Imperfectly Broken, the podcast.
Woo!